Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Monday Night Must See TV with the Hudson Valley Squares. It's Monday night.
Woo!
Hope you're all doing okay. You had a great weekend and you're getting ready to kickstart the work week off the right way with this group right here. Let me introduce everybody here. We got Karen La Preziosa, Craig Kaminsky, Ryan Scow, Chris Allo is our center square tonight, Nick Franco. The Count is here, Ralph Tambora, and Rob Lasante. What's up, folks?
What's up?
Evening.
Going on?
What's going on?
And look who's here early in the episode. Look at that.
Hey, everybody. What's going on?
Yeah, she was already crying at the door, so there she is. She's gonna
So
be.
Daddy's
here for
having a
the
good
long
time
haul.
already. I'm not going to wait till half hour into it. I want to come in.
It's like
now.
I'm already ready to go and lick your head.
She's a doll.
There you go. So today's topic was created by Mr. Allo himself, and this is all about those reunion shows or albums or tours that maybe were discussed, maybe were rumored, or maybe we just really wanted to see, and it never happened. Boo-hoo, right? So I've asked everybody to just kind of think about some bands you love that maybe had some breakups or maybe, couple key members left, and then there was talk of them coming back and they never did, and maybe there was talk of an album happening and it never happened. And so here we are in 2023 and we're so sad that those things never happened. So I'm going to have Karen kick us off with her picks for this, and curious to see what everybody has.
Okay. Well, my big one is Venom. I know they reunited briefly in the 90s, but they hate each other. And I just wish they would just put it all aside and everyone just go and have a great time and sing black metal at the top of our lungs and have a great time. But they just can't get past whatever BS that's between them. And Abaddon is sick, so I don't really see it ever happening. There was a rumor for a while that it was happening, but we just didn't. And I would love to see them again, just like one last time.
And
like,
when was
OG
Chris, you
Venom.
probably know, when was the last time that the original trio played together?
1998. The big reunion started in 95.
Cast
And
in
from,
stone.
from 95 to 97, they did 4 gigs. And then they were like, oh, yeah, but, we're coming out with a brand new record. They did come out with Cast in Stone in 1998, I believe.
I thought it was 6, but you might be right.
I think
did-
it was
After
yeah.
Cast in Stone came out, to promote that album, they did 1 reunion gig before Abaddon then quit, and then, of course, broke up the original reunion. So
It's crazy. I mean, Jeff Dunn even he'll or Mantis, he'll put a picture up on social media, and if Kronos is in it, he'll crop it out. Like it's a well-known photo that we know Kronos is there, but you'll see like his elbow or something in there. And I was like, man, these guys are bitter. Just think about how it would benefit them and everybody else, but I guess they can't just put that aside.
it's tough. I mean, I've interviewed Kronos and Mantis and met Abaddon, and yeah, they fucking hate each other. And they're so dysfunctional because then Abaddon was sort of kicked out of Venom Inc. and it's just a fucking mess.
Yeah. Well,
How many people have seen the original trio?
Not together.
Yeah, I didn't see them together.
I've seen all of them, but it.
Am I
not
the
in
only
same room,
one?
the same place.
Hail to Karen.
Yeah.
I saw them. This is the weirdest show I've ever been to. Real quick before I move on, Black Flag opened up for them, and I saw them
The
at
show in
St.
Trenton?
Garden. Yeah,
Wow.
and they charged $6.66 to get in.
I have the
And,
shirt from that show. That's
Of course they
amazing.
did.
It was the craziest show I ever went to. It was nuts. Like they were making fun of Venom the whole night. Black Flag, Henry Rollins, and the mic. It was crazy, and then there was like all kinds of weird violence going on at City Gardens. I mean, but it was definitely a punks against metal kind of vibe. But people like us, we liked them both. We didn't understand what the hoo-ha was about, but it was a lot of fun.
There's a famous bootleg out there of just Cronus's like banter in between the songs.
Yeah.
Somebody put it together. It's a 7-inch where it's just his banter in between the songs.
I thought that was on Greg from Black Flag's label, SST, that 7-inch.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he put it out at some point. Yeah, it's just Cronus saying wild shit in those songs.
He's like the underground Paul Stanley in a sense when you think about it, like the
Oh, it is, yeah.
nonsense that he'll
It's a
just
good
like croak
analogy.
out.
Him and Tom Araya always had like little
Great
great
raps,
nuggets
yeah.
to dispense.
You like old women?
Big
Oh
around.
my God.
I thought I heard something about the guy from Sonic Youth putting that together, that all the clips of that, but I'm not sure.
Oh, you
I don't
might. So
know.
you know what? Someone's got to get in the comments and figure it out because
That's right.
I don't feel like
Hey.
googling it. So someone
Get
else can figure
cracking,
it out.
dudes.
Nick, get to work, Nick. Come on.
My
I
other
got the
pick,
Ranger game on the phone today.
Mike is there, of course. Well, anyway, my next pick is Motorhead. I never got to see the original Motorhead, and now I never will. In my opinion, that was the only Motorhead. I mean, yeah, Mickey D, Wurzel, Phil Campbell, you guys were great, and they did a great job holding down, but there's only one Fast Eddie. There's only one Filthy Phil. They look like degenerates. When I picked up that record, they looked like such dirt bags. I was like, yes, this is it. Fast and Loose. I'm here for this. I loved it. They're a definite defining band for me. And I will always regret not being able to see the original trio. And
All right, who
That's
saw
what's
the
in my
original
head.
trio?
All my time, yeah.
Oh man, at this point,
Go back.
I pay money to see any fucking version of Motorhead, but obviously it's
yeah.
over and done.
Pete,
with.
what tour did you see them on?
They opened up for Ozzy on the Blizzard of Oz tour.
Oh, wow.
Motorhead was
Wow.
literally the first band I ever saw live.
Wow. What a great show.
That's
was
cool
like-
to be able to say that. That's cool. To be able to say
Yeah.
I was 15 years old. I was like
Wow.
in the 6th row at Mid Hudson Civic Center, right in front of Lemmy. I was
I
like,
like that.
Whoa, that must
I
have
would
been
say,
great.
The first band I ever saw live was Slayer, and that's
Wow.
just you know, you have no control over that. You see what you see at that age, you know. But
Right.
it's cool. You
Right.
look back, you're like, fuck yeah, you know.
Mine was Rush.
I think if that was the first band I saw, I wouldn't be the same today.
yeah, right.
Yeah,
What was the
Motorhead
first
or
band you
Slayer
saw?
definitely makes an impact.
Yeah. Cool. All right, what else you got, Karen?
The other one I'm gonna say, this is more like a shoulda, woulda, coulda, where I had the opportunity and I didn't take it, and now it's not really gonna happen again. Is when Ozzy and Sabbath reunited and did those Ozfest shows, and they were singing. Ozzy was able to do stuff off of Sabotage, and you know, I'm never gonna hear him sing that stuff. I have a thing about being comfortable, and at the time I was living in California, and they were doing those shows. And they used to have Ozfest in like some speedway with no shade, and it was just gonna be super hot and uncomfortable. And I just like, and I was an old lady even then, and I was like, I'm not doing that. And I regret it because they're my favorite band ever, and I just blew such an opportunity. You know what I mean?
And it was with Bill.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Those were
Right.
with Bill.
I was gonna say, Karen, I don't remember Sabbath because I saw Sabbath quite a few times with, I think 18 times with Ozzy.
Yeah.
I don't remember them ever playing anything from Sabotage.
Really? Nothing?
I don't believe
Not even Symptom of the Universe.
Yeah.
they did an instrumental version of Symptom of the Universe, but I don't believe they did a live version since, you know, from 97 on. I don't remember.
Didn't they,
I could be mistaken.
Maybe it was Sabbath Bloody Sabbath because I know didn't
They
play
did Sabbath Bloody Sabbath on the reunion record.
Union record? Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
Yeah, which is a good cover, a good version of it. I think.
Yeah, but that one didn't last. They didn't play that too many times.
Damn.
But yeah, I
Yeah,
don't.
it seemed
I
like,
don't remember
it
them
seemed like
doing-
every tour, more and more songs dropped off that he couldn't sing no more. Like every
Yeah.
time you seen them from that first time they reunited on, they just lost songs every time.
Yeah, I mean, I could be wrong, Karen, but I don't, just going from memory, I don't remember them doing.
Well, I'm going to take your word for it because you are the,
I mean,
you
I-
know,
I
I mean, out of
know-
everybody here, but then it makes me feel better. Maybe how's that?
I know they did. Shit, they also did on the very last Sabbath shows in Birmingham. God, they did an instrumental version. God, it wasn't the Writ. What the fuck was it? They did an instrumental version of something off of Sabotage
Uh-huh.
on
uh-huh.
the very last two Sabbath shows.
Was it Symptom of the Universe?
I don't. They might have,
Super-
but there was
Super
something else they did that was only done. And I was like, because I didn't go. I went to the original two Farewell Sabbath shows in
Yeah.
Birmingham, England, in '99, and then I thought about going in 20. God, was that 2015?
Yeah, 15.
And I was like, oh, fuck it. Instead of going to the last shows, I'm going to go to the first show. So I flew to Oklahoma to see them. But yeah, that fucking last show, Maybe it was the Rit. Maybe it was the Rit. I can't remember now. But it was something. They did an instrumental piece. But yeah,
Yeah.
overall, I could be wrong, but I don't remember them doing much off of Sabotage.
Well, that's good for me, I suppose.
But that was a great show, though. I mean, that was always fun.
Oh,
seeing.
I know. But yeah, I should have went and found out for myself, but I didn't. So that's my 3.
All right, Craig.
All right, thanks. I was just thinking I was been lucky enough to see some good reunion shows like Kiss in '96, and
Mhm.
I saw the original Bad Company reunite in the like '98 or '99, and Dokken in '96 or '95 when they got back together. But my first choice also is Black Sabbath, and this was from 1991 when Ronnie James Dio came back to the band because they initially had Cozy Powell in the lineup at the time, and they went and recorded some demos with him as a part of the band. And Chris, you can keep me honest, but
Yeah.
I remember reading something where it was, Dio was apprehensive about playing with Cozy Powell again because he said, I worked with this guy before and we don't get along. And Tony oh no, he's great to work with now. But then I think they slowly just were oil and water and not getting along. And then I think fate intervened with Cozy breaking his hip in a horse riding accident, and then Vinny Appice coming in and recording the Dehumanizer and album and tour. But of all the different Black Sabbath lineups that occurred all through the years, we never got Dio and Cozy Powell playing together, so you would have had a true Rainbow and Black Sabbath coalition happening. And the demos that I heard, which I believe are available through you can find them on bootleg versions, and I think Chris said you have them, right?
I got a 4 CD box set.
Yeah, and they sounded pretty good, and overall, I kind of maybe wish they would have kept with that, or at least when they recorded Dehumanizer to use a different producer, since I didn't think that one using Mac as their producer didn't sound quite right. So that was sort of a missed opportunity that would have been cool to see live and to hear what recorded output they would have come out with. So that was my first. My second was with Deep Purple. In 2016, they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame finally after 23 years of being eligible. So whispers were abound, is Richie Blackmore going to show up and play with the guys one last time? Finally, then it came out that he wasn't going to show up, and then even was Rod Evans going to show up because he'd been missing in action for how many years, and then nobody even knows where he is, what he looks like, or anything. Would he show up? He didn't. But turns out David Coverdale and Glenn Hughes were there. So there was this opportunity to have 3 of the past singers of Deep Purple together. Maybe they would all play sing Smoke on the Water and trade some verses or so. And that didn't happen either. So it turned out, I love Deep Purple, but the lineup that played was probably the one that was the current lineup of the time that probably the least amount of people wanted to actually see, which was Steve Morse, Don Airey, Pace, Gillan, and Glover lineup. So, but ironically, then at the end of the show, Cheap Trick was inducted too. And they had brought on, they had kicked out Bunny Carlos because they hated him, but they played their 15 minutes or whatever with the original lineup. And then Coverdale and Hughes came out and sang along with the jam at the end. I believe they played Ain't That a Shame, the version from Cheap Trick's Live at Budokan. So they did sing, just not with Deep Purple. So it was kind of definitely a weird missed opportunity for all on what could have been really cool to see just for 15 minutes, because you knew they wouldn't record or tour or anything like that, but it would have been just cool for fans to see, or
what should have happened, Craig, and I was there that night in Brooklyn. What should have happened is that Purple should have had Gillan sit down for a song. Coverdale and Hughes should have came out and played Stormbringer or Burn with the other guys in the band, because I know Glover and Pace would have loved doing it. Morse and Airy would have loved doing it as well. That's what they should have done.
Yeah, and I have a feeling maybe Richie Blackmore would have shown up had John Lord not passed away, but that maybe, but people know how he is, being not wanting the spotlight in situations like that or whatever. Just
Didn't he go on record saying he was never asked, or they told him that he wasn't wanted,
something like that. And but
I don't know who I believe there, but
well, yeah, that was a strange situation. My third pick was with the Scorpions. With they've had several times overseas. They've played in Wacken or in various European festivals where they've had a combined lineup of their bands, of their former members for a one-off show. Like in 2006, they played with Uli John Roth and Michael Schenker all together, playing a handful of songs. In 2013, during the Get Your Sting and Blackout farewell tour, which never happened since they're still touring now, Uli and Michael and Herman Rarebell, I believe, played with them too. Michael Schenker has gone out with his Temple of Rock, having Herman Rarebell and Francis Buchholz play with him. So they've had all these different partial Scorpions reunions, but never doing something sort of like what Halloween has been doing over the last couple of years, and having this mega lineup. I'm sure they do great business, at least in Europe. I mean, I'm not sure about America if the big interest is there, but again, it would be really cool to see this super lineup of the guys from Scorpions, and I think they all get along, ironically, except for the Schenker brothers.
Yeah.
Everyone gets along with each other, but except for the two brothers. So it's kind of weird where they've done interviews together and seem to get along quite well, but except for those two. So that's sort of a missed opportunity that I always thought I would love to see. And these guys aren't getting any younger, so I don't know if that's ever going to develop in the future.
Yeah, I mean, we got this Pumpkin United thing, which is the fans are really digging. They've made a really good album together. The shows have been great. Why not do, like, I don't know, the Scorpion Sting or something like that, and you get all those guys together to do a tour, maybe an album. I think that would be terrific.
Yeah.
Especially after the Shankers just lost their sister.
Yep.
She just passed away like 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Michael, though, man, he's like, he is not having anything to do with the Scorpions at this point.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus.
But those were the three that I had. I mean, I didn't know if I had a couple backups in case someone stole them, but that's okay.
Cool. All right, Nick, what do you got?
I have a lot of obscure shit. I kind of avoided some of the more obvious ones. So I'll start with a very obscure piece of industrial music history. I was thinking about the very talented Reese Fulber from Vancouver, British Columbia, who was a part of the great industrial band Frontline Assembly for a while. He had a lot to do with recording. He was involved with Devin Townsend years and years ago.
That gets a chef's kiss.
What's that? Yeah, he's a really
Assembly gets the
talented
chef's
guy.
kiss.
Makes a lot of ambient stuff, makes a lot of electronic stuff. In the very early 90s, for about a year, he had a project called Will, W-I-L-L. And I only have this one. There were only 2 releases, really, of original material. This is Word, Flesh, Stone. This is sort of like dungeon dance music, like dungeon, like it's just got such a unique atmosphere. Very, very, it's like stuff I could put on when I want to, like, go for a drive at night. It's stuff I want to put on when I want to, like, write creatively. It's really, really interesting stuff. And it just disappeared. I don't even know if he's ever spoken about doing it again or would care to, or if it's just something from, the infancy or the early part of his career. But, if I ever found out that this was going to be performed anywhere live, I would go out of my way to try and see it, me and 10 other people, because it's really good stuff. I think it's, if you like electronic music at all with a cool, dark, gothy atmosphere without being like, it's not like Sisters of Mercy. It's more like dungeon music. I don't even know if I could think of a comparable, but
Only
very
in Hudson Valley Squares will you hear about something called dungeon dance music.
only from
You know
yeah,
what, though? I've heard it because of you, and
Yeah.
that's a pretty accurate description.
right? Pretty cool. And I was in Sweden staying over a friend of a friend's place before flying home years ago, and he had all this weird music, and he gave me some burned copies of this. He's like, "You'll like this," and I did, and I finally tracked down the physical copy. I would imagine they're rare, but not from any real demand. I don't know how popular it is in this world, but that would be cool. And then if you guys, obviously everybody remembers that I'm a big early Gorgoroth fan. Here I have their early album, their first album, Pentagram. And a man sang on this album called, well, his name is Jan, but his stage name was the word hate in Norwegian, which in English just is hat, H-A-T.
I remember.
But it means hate.
I still love it though.
Oh yeah.
One of those translation things.
Yeah, right. So this is I always call this like the Rain and Blood of black metal, because it's a pretty brief album and it's so vicious, and his throat must have torn his own throat out in the studio making this fucking thing.
Hat's vocals were so intense.
Oh my God, they were
really are.
Black metal.
Really are.
And
They were
Hat
full of
singing his
Hat,
ass off.
Yeah, and then he kind of vanished, and I don't know where he ever went. But Gorgoroth has had a million lineup changes and inner battles over the band name, similar to Venom in that regard. But man, if they could track this dude down and come back and perform this Pentagram album, and you see all these bands reforming now, a lot of the people who made the Norwegian black metal and all that stuff, they're they're probably around 50, 48, 50, well in their prime still. But as the years tick away, I don't know how many more years they would have until their bodies could no longer do this kind of thing. So, we've really been lucky. If you're into black metal, there's been so many reunions, so many appearances and bands getting back together. I actually had a hard time coming up with stuff, that's good. But man, if I could see the first singer of Gorgoroth, if he could still do that with his voice, oh boy, that would be amazing. And then lastly, there was a Swedish death metal band called Edge of Sanity. And the man who is most notable from that band is Dan Swano. Yeah, great producer. He's made a lot of more proggy metal and all kinds of great stuff. But Edge of Sanity is one of my favorite death metal bands I got into as soon as I discovered European death metal. What do you call it here? The Spectral Sorrows, really great album cover. Yep.
Another chef's kiss.
Yeah, and then this was the first time I ever saw like a 40-minute long song. The whole album of Crimson here was one long song. Purgatory Afterglow, great stuff. But I think in 1997, infighting in the band, it became Dan's band, but the other guys in the band kind of resented that. And anyway, he was out. And then I think the band, it's so hard to follow what they did.
Did one album without him.
They did. That's what it was. They did Cryptic in 97 without him. Thank you. And he resented that they did an album without him. So he came back and he made an album without them called Crimson 2, which really wasn't as good as Crimson 1. But anyway, egos aside, there's been rumors aplenty that, something like Maryland Death Fest could get them to come over and play and reform together. I would love that, because they are one of the best, pretty melodic, sometimes gothic flavored, but very hard edged death metal band. Edge of Sanity, boy, would I love to see them come back together. And then the patch I picked up is before I was saying I picked up a patch and was just looking at it, and it's Balsagoth from England, and they're done. I think they split up. What would you say, Ryan? Balsagoth is black metal influenced Dungeons and Dragons speed power
with like a real big
very cinematic black metal,
like an Andrew Lloyd Webber kind of theatrical
Andrew Lloyd Webber, is that what you said?
Andrew, yeah, it's got that, but it's very theatrical and like big and bombastic and like
this album, my favorite album by them, is called Starfire Burning Over the Iceveiled Throne of Ultima Thule.
Yeah,
that's a mouthful.
I love a performance.
They have a lot of albums and songs that are like a sentence.
Yeah, and
A
it's
big
just all
sentence too.
adventure, like fantasy and battle and shit. I love that stuff. I would love to see these guys get together, but I don't think they're together.
I haven't heard any rumors in
Yeah.
years. It's like they just broke up or vanished or faded away. But it's been a
Yeah,
long
so
time.
those are my picks. I have one other thing I would mention, but I really do think somebody else is going to do it, and I'm going to leave it to them. And at the end, if there's time, I'll throw it in.
Okay. I like your Edge of Sanity pick. I think that would be a tremendous reunion if it ever happens, because it's just
love to see
weird
that.
how that band just stopped, and it's like, and that was like seems like forever ago, right?
No,
It kind of was. It was a long time.
Yeah, I mean,
still have
Dan's done a million things since then, so
Yeah.
it's not like he hasn't kept busy, but still, yeah.
We can hope.
All right, Mr. Rallo, you're up.
Okay, yeah, this was my topic, which I thought was a good one. Yeah, but Karen got my first definite pick, which was Venom. But you know, my number two, I think, would be the Plasmatics. You know, I definitely remember their '87 tour for the Maggots record. You know, but I wasn't a huge fan at the time, and you know, I was young, and I was like, all right, I'll just see them later. And
Yeah.
fortunately, that was it. I met Richie Stotts, the guitar player, at a Chiller Theater show. You know, a couple of years after Wendy Williams unfortunately took her own life, and I was like, man, I was so hopeful that you guys were going to do a reunion tour at some point. And he goes, man, so was I. He's like, you know, I talked to the other guys, but you know, there was no getting through to Wendy, and if she wasn't in, there was, of course, no way
point.
to do it. Yeah,
How could you do it?
you
There's
can't.
no point.
It's impossible. So that was my number one pick then. Number two for me, Rainbow. I love you know, the Richie Blackmore Rainbow records, especially you know, Ralph's Wearing the Shirt, especially you know, the Ronnie James Dio era.
Yeah.
You know, I interviewed my Ronnie James Dio 4 or 5 times, but the first time I did interview him, I asked him, you know, about because there had been a rumor in the late '90s about a Rainbow reunion, and he said, yeah, you know, the rumors were true. He said he had some discussions with Richie Blackmore's camp, but he said to tie into what Craig was saying, which I've always found fascinating, because obviously things did not work out between Ronnie and Cozy Powell during the Black Sabbath Dehumanizer sessions, and Craig had it right. The cover story was that Cozy Powell fell and got hurt. I always thought maybe that was just to save face, just to get Cozy out of Sabbath because it wasn't working. But anyway, Ronnie James Dio told me himself that he was only going to do the Rainbow reunion if it included Cozy Powell. And within like a year of these discussions, unfortunately, Cozy Powell passed away in a car accident, and that killed that, and obviously that never happened. So that was my number two. And my number three is kind of similar to what Craig was saying, but kind of not. I always wanted to see a Deep Purple Mark III reunion. And thereafter John Lord left Deep Purple, he did have some discussions with Coverdale and Hughes, and supposedly there was a reach out to Blackmore. I think probably the holdup was that Ian Pace was still in the real Deep Purple. I mean, but listen, you know, I love Ian Pace, but they could have got somebody else to fill in, and they could have went out on tour and called it Burn or Stormbringer or
Right, yeah.
fucking, well, I don't care, call it whatever. But I think that would have been really cool. And yeah, of course that never happened, and John Lord passed away a few years. I don't even think it was a few years. I think it was a year or 2 years after these discussions happened, and it never came to be.
I mean, what's with Blackmore? Why is it? Doesn't he live on Long Island or something like that?
Yeah.
He's got a place in Long Island.
That's his first problem.
He's just a fucking weird dude, man.
Yeah, like
you know,
does he have like an animosity that's preventing him from doing something, or just even going to freaking Brooklyn to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Well,
Like,
didn't he? I mean, when he put his Rainbow project back together a few years ago, I thought that Joe and Turner was like waiting by the phone to go out for this, and then he, I remember reading things about Joe and Turner saying, you know, the version that he's got going out there is a joke. I mean, there's nobody else, you know, nobody who did any of the recorded work or anything.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
But you know, here's the thing. I mean, I've been a huge Blackmore fan for many, many years. I think he only did the Rainbow reunion because so many people were asking about it for so many years. And I think he was like, well, I'll do it, but I got to bring half of Blackmore's Night as the bands. Really, basically, it's Blackmore's Night as Rainbow with Ronnie Romero singing and Jens Johansson on keyboard. That's basically Rainbow, right?
Yeah.
So if you've seen or heard any of those performances, they're not very good.
Yeah.
And I don't think Richie's heart was really in it. I think he just did it to make a couple bucks and to shut people up about it, but I don't think he wanted to do that at all.
well, and then in 2009, I think it was, I saw the Over the Rainbow tour at the time, which was Joe Lynn Turner, Jurgen Blackmore, you know, his son, Greg Smith on bass, who had played with, who did the Stranger in a Soul album. It was supposed to be Tony Carey on keyboards, and then he backed out, and Bobby Rodinelli on drums. So it was a mishmash of different Rainbow members, and they sang songs from all the old one, all the, you know, his own Dio songs, and then he also did a couple Graham Bonnet songs as well.
Yeah.
He named his kid Jurgen.
Jurgen, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a complicated
Yeah, he's a
topic.
strange cat. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember interviewing his wife Candace, and she was a sweetheart, but I was kind of saying in so many words, like, okay, like he'll even do. This was before he did this Rainbow, you know, the Rainbow reunion or Rainbow gigs in Europe, and I was like, boy, doesn't he want to ever play like rock music again? I'm like, he'll play Purple and Rainbow songs with this Blackmore's Night stuff, and she's like, well, you know, and blah blah blah. I'm like, hell, why don't you front Rainbow? You're, you know, I didn't say, but I'm thinking you're a good looking broad and you got a good set of pipes. You fucking sing the songs. And she's like, yeah. I go, yeah. But that never happened. So who knows? He's a strange fucking cat, though.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
He's getting up there too. I mean, Richie's like 70,
Clock's ticking. Come on.
75, 78.
All these guys we're talking about. How long does any of them have left?
78.
That's why I'm saying put it all aside and
Set that shit aside. Just fucking
yeah,
figure
do
it
it.
out.
Do it now. We all want it. I mean, it's not just, I don't know, so many genres of music and all these egos and
Well,
bullshit and
That's the number one problem. Ego.
yeah.
He
I
goes.
think when you're not famous, you live on another
Right.
fucking planet sometimes.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
But are you that famous when you
Oh,
think
Richie
about it?
Blackmore, yeah.
Or
I mean, Deep Purple, yeah.
But I mean, their egos are so out of control. It's like the Schenker brothers. I mean, outside of heavy metal and all, like, how many people really know who they are? Do you know what I'm trying to say? It's just like, put it aside. You're Uli and you whatever the hell your name is. It's just like you're just a dude who has a brother that you were in a great band with. Like, do it. Just
Well,
stop it.
sibling rivalry can always be a little extra spicy too, compared to
Who, Blackmore.
just anywhere, you know, just in general.
Oh, he's another one. I don't know. I just don't get it. I think it's stupid.
Yeah, same thing with isn't that the problem with Hart right now? The sisters were.
I thought they were
fallen
back
out.
together. I'm sure they're not talking, but I thought they were doing.
Oh my
gigs
God,
together.
say it ain't
I mean, they're
true.
doing a separate tour. So I don't know what's going. They say that
Oh my God.
they're patched things up, but
You know,
they're
figure
doing
shit out.
separate tours from each other. So I don't know what's going on there.
Whoa, it's the
Yeah.
curse of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm telling you that because it's
Mhm.
always
Just
That's
show
all
up
you
at
do.
Christmas, get in a fist fight, shape, you know, have a couple beers, look it out, you're good to go.
I have the craziest family. We never do that. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
just show
Like,
up and
I
take a
mean,
couple swings and you patch it up.
I can't picture Nancy and Ann brawling.
I know,
You know,
right?
if that's what it
can.
takes to, get all
And
those
they
feelings
need to
out,
start acting like
your
they're,
system.
The Davies brothers and the Kinks, right? They used to get into brawls every tour.
Oh yeah.
Motorhead too.
Yeah.
Motorhead.
The Motorhead was famous for
They
beating the
beat the
shit
shit out of each other.
Yeah.
That's a topic.
Bands
Bands
that beat
that we
the piss
love
out
to
of each
see
other.
fight on stage.
We don't see enough of that anymore.
I know.
All right, Ryan.
All right, well, let's see. What do I got? So first, I want to do a little preface real quick because this came to mind while we are talking about this. So let me say, I've been very lucky, like a lot of us. I've seen a lot of reunions. I've seen some reunions that I kind of hope would happen, and they did. But I think, and Ralph kind of mentioned this on the chat the other day. Some of the best reunions I've ever seen were ones that you never like, there's no fucking way that band's ever going to reunite. You don't even think about it. It's not even an option. And then it happens, you see it, and you're like, well, that's the greatest fucking thing I ever saw. And just because I love the artwork, I'm gonna hold it up real fast. The band Tormented from Hungary, and they put the mask on the original album cover. Yeah, greatest show I ever saw in Norway. And so I'll say, all right, you know what, I'm gonna start off with Motorhead, because Motorhead, one of my favorite bands, and I love every version of Motorhead. Unfortunately, because of my age, I've only seen the, with Bill Campbell, Mickey D, and Lemmy, like the later incarnation, which was still together for like 96 onwards, almost 20 years. But the lineup that would have been great, and he never rejoined the band. Filthy came back and forth, but Fast Eddie never rejoined the band after he fucking left on kind of bad terms. And it was the lineup that they didn't go past this album. This was the last thing those boys did together. And I love everything the band ever did. There's no bad Motorhead albums for me, but Karen's right. The original trio is, when you think of like, name your favorite 10 Motorhead songs, you just go to random metalheads, name your punk fans, name your 10 Motorhead songs. A lot of those songs are going to be from that original couple albums, because that's the iconic era of the band. So
yeah,
it's got to be fucking Motorhead.
And you ever wonder why there was never a huge push to get those three guys back together again?
I feel like the band was just, obviously everybody and their mom knows Motorhead, and they're well known and they're famous. But they always were kind of a cult band in a way, So I don't know if there just was that demand, and they just always were a reliable machine. They were always touring. They always put out albums.
Yeah.
It wasn't like there was a break where it's like.
I was going to say, with all of these reunions, the underlying factor seems to be money, and what kickstarted the reunion craze was the Eagles tour, the Hell Freezes Over in '94, '95, because right after that, there was so many reunions of Venom, Sabbath, Dokken, Kiss, all of these fucking bands, except, but if there's no money there, and Motorhead, like Ryan said, was a cult band. One of mine on the bottom of my list. I never saw the Chris Barnes fronted version of Cannibal Corpse.
There's no reason to go back to them.
Cannibal Corpse is a club band. If they reunite with Chris Barnes, they're going to play the same fucking clubs.
Yeah.
There's not. I don't see there being enough money to entice those guys to go backwards. And same thing with Motorhead, And I think in the case of Motorhead, as time went on, unfortunately Lemmy's health. But I think towards the end, maybe a reunion, with the original lineup, if they could have done it. But
there's
they
a
were
couple
playing big, they were playing big crowds.
involved.
They were playing big crowds in Europe anyway with the lineup that they had. So it was like it's
exactly.
Not,
it wouldn't have changed anything. Yeah, it's not like one of those iconic. Because it is the iconic version of the band. But they were going to play the same songs, and the same people would have come out, and it would have been like, cool, like Fast Eddie. But it wouldn't have been. I agree. Even though he's the iconic guitarist for the band, I just don't see it being like, now they're playing Madison Square Garden.
Exactly.
It's like the Misfits with Michael Graves. They played the Chance. The Misfits with Danzig. They're playing fucking MSG.
Yes.
Which is kind of a weird. That's a weird thing, but that wasn't going to happen with Motorhead
Well, for what I've seen Motorhead at the Garden, but they weren't headlining. But also
Iron Maiden.
Another big thing though is that after that, these guys leave. You got No Remorse comes out, huge album. Then you got Orgasmatron, another great album. So they weren't like floundering right after they left. They were on the upswing, and they've only gotten really bigger as time went on.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like once Lemmy moved to America and they did like 1916 and Sacrifice, they just kept the ball rolling. So they never had that down period. Like, well, we need to pull some money in. Let's call the old band up.
Yeah, and they had name recognition too, so it's like people were going to go see them no matter, they don't really, as long as Lemmy was there, really.
Exactly. You're right. You need the three of them, but Lemmy is, it's fucking Lemmy. So that's the. No, so I agree with all that. So the second choice, of course, now I got to get obscure because. So I'm going to stay in England. A band that, you know what? It's a nice segue. A band that Fast Eddie produced. And that kind of sounds like Motorhead. We're accused of sounding like Motorhead. And it's kind of true. And it's Tank. Yeah. So
Tank, okay.
Fucking Tank. So I've been lucky to see a lot of the old New Wave bands. I've seen Angel Witch, Diamond Head, Holocaust, Satan, Iron Maiden, obviously, Def Leppard. It's probably about a dozen more. But I've seen most of the old New Wave of heavy metal, British heavy metal bands that have come back around in some form, in some incarnation. I've never seen Tank. And Tank is one of those bands where now they have the two different Tanks. Neither of them are particularly active. You have the Algie Ward version. You have the Tucker and Evans version. And then the original, I could actually, my brain sucks here for fucking names. The original version on this album was the Peter and Mark Brobs. So it was Algie Ward and the Brobs brothers played on this Phil Town of the Hades from 1983. But there's been very little activity for either camp. It's just like one of those things where there's not really much of a demand for it because they're pretty obscure. If they came over here, like honestly, they'd probably play a club like St. Vitus, like 200 to 300 capacity. They're just an obscure cult band, but I'd love to see them. And of the old new wave of British heavy metal bands that I never have seen that are be high on my list, one's Witchfinder General, who reunited a couple of years ago, but I don't think it's ever going to happen just because they're so cult, and there's no demand for it. There's no money for it. Like, what's the fucking point in a way?
They're in a festival.
Yeah, festival. It's almost like a situation, and this has happened. I think it happened with Manila Road, another cult obscure band. You just need that festival promoter that says, I don't give a fuck if there's money. I want to see this fucking band. Like, I'm going to put the money out. And I think with Manila Road, I could be way off on this, but I think it was a promoter in Greece that just said, fuck it. I want to see you guys. I want to fly you out here. And he kind of got the ball rolling again for the band because they've been active for a couple years. So you need someone that is like not looking at it from the money angle. It's like, I don't give a fuck. I just want to see you guys. But how often do those people come along? They're willing to lay out that kind of money.
That was exactly how Venom Inc. happened.
Yeah, it's pretty rare. So maybe there's some guy out there for Tank. I don't know. But again, when these kind of bands reform anyways, they tend to play in Europe and England and stuff and don't really come to America. But I would love to see him.
Hey, Ryan, that guy, Algie Lord, isn't he like a producer too? Doesn't he produce or something?
He could be. Well, Fast Eddie did produce this album. I don't know if I couldn't speak to that. I'd have to look into that. But
I've seen him on websites. I think he has like software and stuff because I play guitar and some of the stuff I bought, I think he produced. So, but
it doesn't
check that.
No, I'm looking at his thing here. He's done it's mostly just Tank and like a couple other like odds and ends, but pretty much the whole career has been in Tank. So it might be somebody else, but he is, he's the vocalist for the band and like the main guy, so he would need to be involved. Not that there's two versions, but yeah, Tank is my second one, and my third band is the band that almost got me to fly to Australia, but COVID ruined that, and I have yet to go to Australia, although I'd love to visit one day. And that band is Beastie Warlust, Vengeance War Till Death, and it's a great cover there. And the way I would describe this band, the way I would describe this album is very
rock.
It sounds like Mariah Carey. Yeah, thank you, Nick.
What kind of rock?
It sounds like it's like kind of stuff you hear in the mall and Macy's when you're shopping for back. No, it's like so you take how metal was going in the 80s, Venom, Bathory, Hellhammer, Slayer, how thrash was kind of evolving into a more extreme sound. The opening sounds of death metal and black metal and like their very primal forms, kind of starting with Venom, going from there. And then black metal and death metal went off in crazy directions, as Nick can probably speak to a lot, went off and got very different from how it originally sounded. Like a lot of these Norwegian bands, a lot of these death metal bands, they're still metal, but like they don't really sound like Venom. They don't sound like the roots of heavy metal anymore. Like they've gone a new direction, which is fine. You need to change and keep going. These guys just sound like you took that original formula from like Venom, Celtic Frost, Hellhammer, and you just kept turning it up, but not really adding anything like not like, oh, here's some new styles of riffing here. They're just like, nope, we're just gonna take that sound and just put everything to fucking maximum and just make it this like hellacious, like fucking atomic blast. Because it's pretty fucking unlistenable, I think, to most people, although I love it, but I'm not gonna recommend viewers go check this out. But anyways, they put out 2 albums. This one was 1994. And they did one more album in 95, and then they broke up. And there was talk, and there was actually a planned reunion concert, one show in Melbourne, Australia, in like it was supposed to be in the fall of 2020. Well, that didn't fucking happen. I bought the ticket, and I was getting ready to buy my airfare and ready to fucking take that credit card hit. But they delayed it for a year because obviously Australia had some pretty serious lockdowns and, COVID shit. They delayed it 2 years, and then they said, fuck it, it's not going to happen. And I got my money back. And they were only planning one show. And they're obviously, if you can imagine, with a name like Beastie Warlust, The album's called Vengeance Word Till Death. And they have, I think I've talked about these guys before. The band members have names like, these are good Christian names here. Joel Skullfucker, Chris Corpse Molester, and of course, Marcus Hellcunt. That's cunt with a K, by the way. They're a pretty volatile bunch. So I'm amazed that the one reunion show was ever in the offing, and it didn't happen. And that's it. So I never got to see them.
I'm offended.
You should be. So
luckily, that guy
actually,
with the
Nick,
last name with the K's to differentiate him from the guy who has the last name of C.
who want nothing to do with it. It's like, stop. I'm sick of getting that guy's mail. It's fucking. So didn't get to see them, but I would have loved to. Me and you said 10 other people, would have gone to that. Like Nick said, me and 10 other people would have gone to that show. But I was ready to buy that fucking airfare and fly down there and see the show like an idiot. But
wow,
that's a loyal fan that would fly all the way to Australia.
And what makes me feel good is I've mentioned that to several people.
More or less fans.
I've mentioned that to a lot of people I've known, and they're like, you know what? If I knew one person that was going to fly to fucking Australia to see that, it would be you. I'm like, thanks, that means a lot.
Live your life, Ryan. Do it.
Several people have said that to me. I'm like, do I really come off like that? But
you got a love for life.
And that's all I got.
You would have been at customs and they would have said, what is your reason for visiting Australia? And you would have said, bestial warlust.
Go home. Hey, you need to turn around. And
we don't want you here.
I'm here to see Joe Skullfucker.
He's expecting me. Well, you're going to have to wait because now we're sending you back to America.
Oh, man. All right, Rob.
Well, I think I screwed this up. I think I misunderstood what we were doing. Although my first one is definitely what we're talking about, but I think because when you said reunion or bands that we wanted to see that they didn't get to see, that's what I was thinking more so than reunion. But my first band is going to be a band that came out of Seattle in the early 90s, which kept the 90s metal alive for me personally. I mean, there was other good metal in the 90s, but Nevermore. And Nevermore was a band that I didn't know anything about them until I heard them, somebody introduced me to them, and I loved them. But I never got to see them live. And then they broke up 2015, I think it was, somewhere around there. No, maybe earlier, 2011.
Yeah, a little bit earlier.
Yeah, and then Warhol was doing his thing, and there was rumors, and Warhol had said in a couple of interviews that I read that there was a possibility they were going to work on a new album together. I saw Warhol in 2015 with Overkill and Symphony X down at I think it was Terminal 5. I was at that show, which was a great show. With Sanctuary, which was an amazing show, and so I was hoping after that, seeing him, on tour and everything, that there was a possibility they would get together. But of course, he died in 2017. And so that's never going to happen. And it's one thing I regret that I didn't see them earlier together when they were together.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I think he was talking about after they got a couple Sanctuary albums under the belt, he was going to go and try and get back together with Loomis to do Nevermore. And
if he would have
and
still
they played the Hudson Valley. They played in Middletown.
Yeah, I just never I never had a chance to see them. And then, 90s was I was married to my first. Whole other story.
Things were happening.
That's a whole other story for the other band you guys mentioned, but I don't know, is this considered the reunion, the 2014 Black Sabbath reunion? I didn't see that tour. I wanted to see it, but something came up and I couldn't get to see that tour that year for Black Sabbath.
No, the End tour. Yeah,
the End tour with Ozzy. I
saw that.
I only saw Ozzy I never saw Ozzy with Black Sabbath. Never
That's
did.
too bad.
I saw Heaven and Hell and Dio with Sabbath, but I never got to see Ozzy with Sabbath. I saw Ozzy by himself, but that was it. So that's one tour. Another tour, obviously, I didn't get to see. And I'm going to say, this is not really, this is what, all right, so 1980, 79. Now, I'm going to show my age me and my buddy Rob, I'm a big Zeppelin fan, as a lot of people might know, and I wanted to see Zeppelin, and I didn't get to see them in 77 when they toured. I was too young. I didn't get to see I didn't go to a concert until 1978, which was Yes at the Garden. So I was definitely going to go see Zeppelin. We're going to get tickets. In fact, tickets were going to go on sale, and then John Bonham died. And I was obviously just distraught, like a lot of people were in those days. And
you were going to play in Philly, if you remember, Rob. Remember, they think that was.
I was going to say, if I'm not mistaken, I think tickets actually did go on sale.
Yeah, but
there's tons of tickets out there.
Oh, my buddy showed me his ticket today for Chicago. He had a Chicago ticket. But
I think Buffalo, I think they were doing Buffalo was the only New York show, but there was a planned second leg.
Second leg in 81. Right.
It never went on sale. Yeah.
And obviously because he passed away. So I didn't get to see that tour. And
that's a great pick.
Yeah, it's a really good pick.
Really.
Those are my 3 picks.
How many reunion rumors over the years? That of that came up
for Zeppelin. Yeah, exactly.
Just one show. That was it.
I would say I would just throw in probably Van Halen. I mean, I saw Van Halen many times in the 80s, but I didn't get to see the reunion tour. And I regret it now because, we lost Eddie a couple of years ago. Yeah. And that was my man, and
I still can't believe he died. It's way too.
Well, Neil Peart's the same thing.
Yeah.
I didn't see the Rush Time Machine tour. I wanted to go see that. I didn't see that. I thought, they'll be back again. Who knew?
You never know.
You just never know.
With all these guys now,
You guys were just talking about it before. These guys are getting older. People get sick. I mean, it was weird. I just read an article about what's his name, the guy from Morbid Angel. They just had that tornado thing, and then the guy collapses on stage.
Yeah, Trey. Yeah.
I just seen him last Friday, or not last Friday, the Friday before.
I mean, knock on wood. That's what I can tell you.
Is he okay? What happened to him?
I didn't get the whole story.
I heard he was dehydrated. He played the final show, so they had one more show, and
he's okay.
Now he needs time to rest. He was just dehydrated.
Okay, yeah, that happens. Yeah.
Oh man,
cool.
Your water, Trey.
You never I tell you, just a quick aside. I don't take pictures with band members. I just never do. I don't get autographs. But I've seen Manila Road many times to go back to them. And the last time I saw them was in Dingbats in New Jersey, where me and Karen and some others were to see Satan recently. And it was me and my friend Craig, another Craig, also bald. And we're walking out of the venue, and the main guy in the band is Mark Shelton. He's been in the band the whole time, and it's his band basically at this point. And we're walking around the corner, and Mark's just hanging out there. So we're like, "Fuck it, great show, Mark. Guy's kind of a legend in like that style of metal." Took a picture with him. And would you know it, like a couple months later, he passed away. He was playing a show, I think, in Europe, Germany. And it was one of those clubs where it was hot as shit. We've all been in those kind of clubs. It was just like punishingly hot. Yeah. And he played the show because they were an older band, but they didn't get up there and they got up there and they fucking played. Like they gave you a set, and they played long sets. And I think the exhaustion or whatever it was, that was it. They took him out. And I'm thinking, man, I saw them probably 12 times. That was the last time, but I'm like, I'm so glad I just got that picture. Because 99 times out of 100, I see guys, and I'm just like, I'm happy to see the music, but I'm glad I took that fucking picture. Just one of those things. You never know. Yeah.
You never know. You never know, especially now. All right, Ralph.
All right, going back really quick on what Rob was saying about Led Zeppelin. There, it's like they did the Page Plant thing, but why didn't they have Joan, what's his name?
John Paul Jones.
John Paul
Jones.
Why wouldn't they get him
That's
to be part of it?
I saw that tour too.
Because it's a 2-way split instead of 3.
Yeah, think, babe, right on the nose. That's it. It's all about the money. All about the money.
It's the music business.
It's an industry.
But so yeah, my number one is I'm gonna say is Pink Floyd. Roger Waters. We've been fans of Pink Floyd. We've all wanted that to happen all these years. I remember the first time seeing Pink Floyd, there was rumors. It was like a bullshit rumor that Syd Barrett was going to come out and do a couple songs. But back then, we didn't know like what was up with Syd Barrett. He just like dropped off like no one's ever dropped out of the scene ever. Yeah. So we were hoping like he'd come out and do like a song or two. But of course, that didn't happen. But Roger Waters and Pink Floyd, that was always like one of the longest hopes that would happen. And they did get together in like 2005. They did that Live 8, and they played for like 18 minutes with no stage show or anything. And I'm glad they did it because Rick Wright was still around for it. And it was great that they did it, but what a ton of money would have been made, and it would have been the ultimate tour if that could have happened. So that's my first one. And Rainbow, I mean, we were talking about it already. I've never seen Richie Blackmore in any way. I missed the Perfect Strangers tour. That would have been the last time I probably would have had a chance to see him. And I was like 14 or 15 at the time. And I remember wanting to go. I loved that album at the time. And I was thinking it was going to last and they would be coming around again and again, and never happened. At this point, I'd see Blackmore's Night if they played local at the Chance, and I'd get really drunk and I'd just scream out "Gates of Babylon" over and over again. But I'll probably never get to see Blackmore live. That's going to be a regret for me. And Venom, like we were, Karen bring him up first, but I went to that Metal Black tour at Irving Plaza, and it was great just to see Cronus singing those songs, those old songs. The only chance I ever had, like Chris was saying, they did one show. They played the Milwaukee Metal Fest.
Yep.
And I had friends that were going. I had friends that played that show, that Morpheus Descends played that show. And I just figured with that album, Cast of Stone was so great, I thought at the time, that we were going to get a whole tour out of that, So I wasn't worried. I was thinking, I'm not going to drive fucking 18 hours. I'll just wait till they come. And it's just funny because like I know if fucking Scal was of age, he would have been there. Like I didn't go to that beer fest thing last weekend because I'm like, Philly's 3-hour ride home after the show. And he's talking about fucking going to Australia for fucking,
I didn't do it. I thought about it. I was real close.
He would have put his butt in a plane for 24 hours to go
I mean, they're a great band, but I can't think of any band that would make me go to Australia for.
Well, I mean, you build a whole vacation out of it. That's how I talk myself into these things.
I had the long sleeve for that album you were holding up, and
oh yeah, I've got that.
It didn't fit no more, so I traded it to somebody.
I've got that floating around somewhere. Yeah, I would have been there for like a week and a half and like done all kinds of stupid shit. But
yeah,
that's what I think. Like, I'm gonna spend this money to go to like Norway. Well, obviously, when I'm there, I'm gonna do the tourist shit too. But I'm gonna see the band I want to see. But then I'm gonna be looking at all the other stuff too. Otherwise, you're just a maniac.
That's amazing that you guys do that. I really look up to how you guys do that shit, man. I wish I could do that. But so what's that? Oh yeah, so my other one is the Dead Kennedys, man. Fucking the band gets ownership of the name just like the Misfits did, and they go on tour with Brandon Cruz singing, a different singer, and it's playing little clubs and stuff, and they do it for years and years. They never put out like any new material. They just play the old shit. Then Jello Biafra's out there. He's doing his own bands, and he's playing old Dead Kennedy songs. And the success of the Misfits, I would think the Dead Kennedys would be next in line to do the same thing. And when they originally broke up, it was because they were dealing with all these court battles, and they were having all these problems with the government and everything. Mm-hmm. There's a book out there about the Dead Kennedys, and when they broke up, it was mainly because they just got stalled with all this bullshit. But then the ugliness started years later when they started. Jello's owns the Alternative Tentacles, and he's selling the albums, and then they want the name and they want to do stuff with it, and that's where everything gets ugly. But years and years go by, and we're waiting, hopefully thinking that they would get back together. And last year, the great drummer D.H. Pellegro trips in his home accidentally and dies. And not that would really kill a reunion, this could still happen, but for some reason it's just not happening. And I went to see the Dead Kennedys with the Brandon Cruz, and it was great. But it was like. Yeah. It was like a karaoke kind of thing where everybody was just screaming all the words and stuff. And it was a fun show getting to hear that music live, but it just wasn't the same. I've seen Jello Biafra a bunch of times. I've had Jello Biafra sign I hung out with him one time where he signed like 16 albums from me in a row. He just sat down on a thing. Got a couple of them. He would draw like little pictures on them. But it was, I always thought that it was a matter of time, just for the money reasons alone, but it hasn't happened yet. But I'm still holding out, hoping that it happens.
I'm with you, Ralph. That's a great pick, and I can't imagine. I mean, California Uber Alice. He's the only one. I mean, his voice is so distinctive. I can't. Another guy singing those songs. I don't care if it's East Bay Ray on the guitar or not. he's the only one who could do it. He's like Wendy O, you know what I'm saying? Like, it
Yeah.
blows my mind that they've got some hell of nerve carrying on as the Dead Kennedys without Jello Biafra. That's just
They've been doing it for
crazy.
20 years like that, where at least if they put out some new albums, like the way the Misfits did
Yeah.
with the Graves thing, you know, like then at least they'd have something that they could build on. But they just played nothing but those old songs over and over again, never put out new material. And like I said, you know, everybody in the crowd be screaming all the words. Everybody knows the words. So, you know, it was still fun, but it's just not the same. And there's
Right
a lot
on.
of money to be made there on a reunion tour.
Good pick, Ralph. Good pick.
Yeah, good stuff. So before I go on my picks, I had to tell the story. So the other day, of course, over the weekend, it was Record Store Day, right? So a bunch of us went to Rock Fantasy all at different times and whatnot, and some of us met up there. And so Cans got to meet Ralph in person for the first time ever, right? So hanging out talking. Then I saw Cans later that night, and he was asking me when the first time Ralph and I met, and I was like, you know, it was weird. It was kind of like a bunch of years ago. I know it was at Bethel, but I kind of forgot about it. But then, like, Ralph and I were, I don't know, the last time we saw each other, the time before that, you came up to me and you said, "Do you remember the first time we met?" And I'm like, kind of, but not. And Ralph was like, "It was at this show at Bethel, and I came up to you in the parking lot because I saw you and your buddy hanging out and whatever before, and everybody else had gone in." And I was like, "Oh yeah." So, but then I was told Cans this story, and I was like, but I couldn't remember what show it was. And literally, like an hour after I was having that conversation with Cans, I get a text from Ralph. And he actually sends me the picture, not even knowing that I was having that conversation with Cans at the same time. So it was 2019, before the pandemic, in the parking lot of Bethel Woods for Alice Cooper.
Oh, wow.
It's so weird that
He's
like
wearing
it's
a
almost
rainbow shirt. He's wearing a rainbow shirt.
exactly. Yeah, I'm wearing my rainbow on. Well, it's not the on stage, but it's the Live in Germany thing. Yeah,
Ralph's
I'm
got
wearing
the
a Heaven
memory,
and Hell
though. Let
That's
me
good.
tell you.
shirt.
That's
it's not even the
Wow.
memory. How did he know that I was having that conversation with Cans at the same time?
Your ears are ringing. You're like, man,
It must have been, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's
Well, because you sent me the picture of Rock Fantasy, so I figured, I'll grab that picture and send it back. You know,
Which
so
is very cool.
I didn't hear nothing. I was no ringing or nothing. I just figured I'd send you.
By the way, there we all are. For those of you who don't have Facebook, there is Cans, Ralph, Mr. Keeler, and myself in
Nice.
Store Day.
Very nice.
And I was there like an hour later. Like,
And yeah, you were
I didn't
there
know you guys were going.
earlier, and then you came later or something like that. And Karen,
I just showed up.
there. Yeah,
And Nick and I were there the next day
exactly.
I went the next day
with
too.
Ryan again.
Yeah,
That's
so
a
we
good
didn't
Mexican
time that too well, but you know, anyway. All right, so my picks. We've got a lot of cool picks tonight. So let's see what. All right, so my Zeppelin pick has already been taken. The Dio pick has already been taken. I got a couple others here. All right, so I have to throw this pick out here. I know Butch would appreciate this. So back in the late 80s, I never got to see that one Blue Murder tour with John Sykes, Carmen Apiece, and Tony Franklin. Never saw any of those shows, so I don't remember why. I just never saw it. And then, of course, they broke up, and that was that, right? Well, there have been all these rumors for many, many years. Carmine himself told me numerous times that he goes, "Yeah, we were all set to do it. You know, John was in, and we were waiting, and then we're waiting, and then we're waiting, and then we're waiting." And we know the whole John Sykes story. You're always waiting with John Sykes. So the Blue Murder reunion has never happened. And quite frankly, I would love to see it because I never got to see them live. And I still think there's unfinished business with that band. And quite frankly, John Sykes needs to do fucking something at some point. Why not do Blue Murder, right? So, yeah, so that's one of my picks right there. Another reunion I think would be really, really cool. And honestly, I think both sides really need to do it, is the Skid Row reunion. I mean, they hate each other.
Yeah,
The
they
band
do.
hates Sebastian Bach and vice versa. There have always been rumors and people wanting to see it, but I don't know. I think that there's so much deep-seated dislike going on within that camp that it's never going to happen. And, you know, if you talk to the guys, I was on a show on Busted Open Radio on Sirius XM a couple weeks ago, and Snake Sabo from Skid Row was on the show as well. And they're super psyched about the new album they have that they put out a couple months back. They've got a new singer, and I've heard the album is pretty good. And quite frankly, they've done a lot of albums post Sebastian Bach that have been not very good, and they've kind of faded into obscurity. And on the same token, Sebastian Bach has done a bunch of albums. Nobody really buys them. You know, both acts are playing clubs and things like that. So I think it would make perfect sense for those, and here's an example of where if Sebastian Bach and Skid Row got back together to play stuff from those first couple of albums, you're talking big business out there on the
Oh,
tour.
hell yeah.
People would definitely go to that.
Oh yeah,
Definitely.
for sure. For
It's
sure.
one of the last big reunions that really hasn't happened.
Yeah, exactly. And will it happen? I don't know, but you know, at some point maybe we'll see that. And then an obvious one for me, it's really more for the prog rock show, but I would love to have seen a reunion with Genesis with Peter Gabriel and Steve Hackett back in the band. They've talked about it. There have always been rumors. The fans have always wanted it. At this point, it's never going to happen, but that would have been great, great business to see.
I don't know why they just couldn't. I mean, you know it better than I do, but why couldn't they just figure it the fuck out? Just figure it out.
You know, I think it's just for Peter Gabriel, especially. I mean, he left Genesis in what, 75? It's like a million years ago, and he's made a great career for himself. So he doesn't really need to do it. He probably doesn't even want to sing those songs anymore. And you know, now they're all too old, and Phil Collins can barely walk. And you know, or it's just at this point, it's probably
Peter's going on tour anyway, isn't he? He's going to do a tour with this new album. Gabriel.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Peter, yeah. And yeah, Steve Hackett continues to tour. He does the old Genesis songs and stuff. So he's like, I don't need to do it. You know, I'm doing okay by myself. So yeah, so there's that. And I guess that's 3. I'll throw one more out here too. I don't know, Rob, maybe you went. I never got to see the reunion with Dennis DeYoung and Styx back in the 90s.
Oh,
I saw that.
And
So
did
Styx
you?
back in
I would have loved to have
80s.
seen that. Huh?
In the 80s.
In the 80s? Well, but they did it again in the 90s. They
Yeah,
did that
in
in the
96.
90s. I didn't
96,
go.
97.
And
Alright,
now
nice
it's
tour.
like, you know, I think Dennis is basically retired now, but he has said, he told me, he's like, he goes, if they asked, I would totally do it. And the guys in the band are kind of like, no interest. So I guess that's never going to happen. So, but
Yeah.
whatever. So yeah, I don't know. So Nick, did anybody pick that other one that you had?
No, mine was way more whimsical because I don't think there was ever a chance, but I was always
Whimsical.
hoping that
Yeah,
years
I know,
back,
right?
whimsical. I was always hoping that Paul Di'Anno would get invited back to do, like, to have them go on a tour and just play fucking Killers back to front, or play the first album back to front. Just say,
you know
fuck
that's
it,
never happening.
let him do it.
No.
It's never
You know
gonna
what?
happen. And now I think he's too
What's
old.
adding another band member? They got 3 guitarists, right? Why
Well,
not?
no,
We're
I
talking
would've
about egos,
preferred-
remember? Let's think about it. Bruce
Like-
Dickinson, I mean, I love him and all, but
He probably
there's
wouldn't let it
no
happen. but-
way he's going to share a stage with Deanna.
That
No, I
was in
would
my
say
honorable
sit it out.
mention.
Like, don't even.
That was in my
go.
honorable mentions. I had it like when Blaze Bailey joined. I remember thinking like when we heard Bruce Dickinson had left, we were all like, "Oh, we got to get Paul Di'Anno back." Like that was the time where that would have happened, and it was like,
Yeah.
all of a sudden this new guy came in, and
But I would have
went to
loved
shit.
Paul on stage with Adrian and Dave and Steve,
yeah.
and you know, obviously can't have Clive, but
Right.
that
Right.
would have been,
But they could have had Clive. I mean, he had MS later on, but there was
I don't know
years
at what
where
point. Right, I don't know at what point he could have done, but there was probably a sweet spot where they could have, and
they
I
could
tell
have.
you, that would have completed my fandom.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
hell yeah.
You
But,
know,
I mean,
Dennis Stratton could have even jumped in there. He could have been the Janet Gear.
He's too busy suing them. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean, when was the last time Paul Di'Anno could actually sing anything?
I was gonna say I saw Paul Di'Anno in 1990, and he was pretty bad back then.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
What's
saw him
the
in
one-
1981 and he was
Chance
bad.
when he played. Who went to that Chance show when he played?
Oh, I
I was there.
I
How
should have
did that
gone.
go?
I should have
His
gone.
his voice was so shot that night. He sounded good for like 2 songs, and then he apologized in between
Right.
every song. But that night was still fucking amazing because afterwards he hung out
Yep.
until every person in that club got their album signed and got pictures with him. And he
I-
bullshitted with everybody. He was awesome. But man, he was terrible on stage.
Oh,
Yeah.
Ralph, was
I
that
hate
just
to
a
hear
Di'Anno
that.
solo, or was that Battlezone?
It
Solo.
was solo. It
Yeah.
was just Paul Di'Anno, and I forget the backup band he had at the time. It was like a known band that he would pick up, like Skeletal Witch or something like that, and they would play all the old Maiden songs, and they sounded great, you know. And he did sound good for like 2 songs, but he kept complaining about suffering with a cold or something. But he made up for it by apologizing and then like hanging out with everybody afterwards for hours. It was
Yeah,
really cool.
I was there for that, Ralph, and he and I, we had a big bro hug, and we were talking for a while. Yeah, and I was like, dude, don't ever think that you don't mean a lot to Maiden
Aw.
fans. You know, like you.
I remember talking to him about about our love for punk music, and I was bringing up the Exploited and stuff here. He's like, I love all those bands. And he was like naming other bands and stuff. So it was like really cool that because you always heard that he liked punk and stuff, and he comes from that. But like to hear him like throwing out band names and shit, it was pretty cool.
Definitely cool.
Cool. All right, Chris, good job, right?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, I got a bunch more on my list that weren't mentioned.
Go for it.
I'm pulling a Craig Kaminsky or a fucking Steve Keeler.
A Keeler.
Wait a
So,
minute.
You gotta say it like Steve though if you're gonna do
Yeah,
that.
but is Ralph gonna
Yeah,
do show
say it
and
like
tell?
Steve. Say it like Steve.
You gotta say it like you got a mouthful of peanut butter.
Say it like Steve.
That's funny.
Do one like Steve. Do one.
I can't do Steve. I would need marbles in my mouth a little bit. I love you, Steve. I'm just saying. But yeah, Danzig. I love Danzig. Seen him 12 times with the original lineup, but always wanted a reunion with the original lineup. Coverdale Page. I love that fucking record.
Yeah.
They broke up. They only did a couple dates in Japan. I asked David Coverdale, I'm like, well, the record sold. How come the tour never happened? He was like, oh, it's Page's manager. I'll never forget the quote. He told me, Page's manager, he's like, he couldn't get laid in a woman's prison with a handful of pardons. He's like, I couldn't work with that guy, so I had to fucking leave. I was like, wow, I will never.
Wow, okay.
I've done 500, 1,000 fucking rock interviews. I'll never forget that quote. Sepultura. Saw them many times with the original lineup. Would love to see him. This one I never saw. I would ask Yngwie Malmsteen all the time. Every time I interviewed him, Alcatraz. And he was always like, yeah, maybe, but that never fucking happened. Whitesnake. Yeah, Whitesnake is still going, but Coverdale and John Sykes. I know John Kalodner, the famous A&R guy, tried to get them back together again in the 90s. That didn't work. Fear Factory, the demanufacture lineup, that band
that'll
is
never
completely
happen.
fucking dysfunctional, but they suing each other. The two of them, Raymond and Christian, were both screwing their manager. They're a fucking mess, but I would have loved to see a reunion with them. Bolt Thrower, only saw them once. The drummer passed away. Then they broke up. And Manowar. You know, the original Manowar is fucking great. After Ross Boss left, that band had zero magic.
That will never ever happen.
Nope,
Yeah, that'll never
that's
fucking
never
happen.
happening.
But yeah, those were the other ones I thought of.
You want to talk about fucking egos? Woo!
Yeah, no, it's true.
Hey, if you're going on stage in a loincloth, you got to have a pretty high opinion of yourself to begin with. You got to be pretty confident. You know what I'm saying? Like, so all of those guys, forget about it. Those.
I mean, I've seen Ross, the Boss's solo band, a lot. He's cool. They play a great set.
Yeah, we saw him a month ago in Texas.
Yeah, saw a month ago. They play all those good songs. He's just down. I met him when they played the Chance, like right before COVID.
Yeah.
It's from everything I've gathered, it ain't him. It ain't him.
I actually got to ask him about it.
Ralph asked him about that.
Yeah, like 2 weeks ago, we did a Rock Fantasy.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yep.
And I brought it up. I said when that shit went on with Carl Logan, I was like, we were all hoping, you would get the call and come back. And I asked, was there ever any consideration of it and stuff? And he said, yeah, like 10,000 fans were all screaming for it. But he's like, what's his name?
Joey DeMaio.
Joey?
Yeah, Joey's got to fucking have complete control and this and that. And he was just like, yeah, it wasn't going to happen, but that would have been the time to bring him back. And how pleasing to the fans would that have been?
Oh, it'd been huge. Yeah.
It would have been huge. Talk about money.
I was going to say, speaking of, you guys know my Manowar story with Joey DeMaio, but that just made me think of another band I would love to see a reunion, Immortal. I'd love to see Abbott back in Immortal, but that's not fucking happening.
That ain't gonna happen.
No.
Yeah, I like the one new song they released, but then they released another new song, and
there's a lot of bad.
And I mean, listen to me. If you're a fucking band and you're putting out records and you're not touring, you're not a real band. Sorry, that's my personal opinion, but I don't know what's going on in that fucking band that they can't.
Unless you're Dark Throne.
Yeah, I was gonna say unless you're Dark Throne.
Unless you're Dark Throne.
unless you've
I never liked Dark Throne.
There you go.
So, there you go.
I had Bolt Thrower in my honorable mentions too, and I was like the same thing as like Led Zeppelin. They lose the drummer, and then that's it. And you got to respect that they do that. But now a lot of years have gone by. They can get a replacement drummer, even though he was an important drummer and a big part of the band. They were one of those bands that when you heard the drums, you could guess who was playing.
Yeah, it was.
And there's not many bands you could like guess the band by the drum style. And both
right.
they're one of my favorite death metal bands of all time.
I feel like that's never going to happen though. Just kind of the way they broke up, they kind of had, it was like a sense of finality about it. It's like, this is
Very
it.
Led
And he
Zeppelin.
died, and then that was really it.
It was a lot like Led Zeppelin, the way, you know, they lost an important member and they just called it. And that, I still think that could happen someday though. But, and Minor Threat was another band that I always thought should have reunited. I mean, they got so much bigger as the years went on. They were just a little basement band, and then they the cult status of them. But he was successful with Fugazi and stuff, and
he didn't need it.
That would have been, he didn't need it, but I would have loved to have seen it. But I don't know if I really need to see it now at like 60 years old, a Minor Threat, you know?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, too much time has passed for that kind of thing.
Those songs are written by 19-year-olds for 19-year-olds.
Well,
it's just not going to work right now.
It wouldn't
like
work.
the Runaways, you know, there was talks for years, but you know, they were young, pretty teenage girls, and now they're all like what, pushing 70.
Yeah, but how about if they made it like they ran away from the old age home? You know,
Like,
There's always an angle. There's always an angle. You can work.
I like that thinking.
They'd be the rollaways on the wheelchair.
Rollaway.
Rollaway.
Right.
No, Moron.
Womp womp.
The Golden Girls.
That's what the Jets are going to need when they get Aaron Rodgers.
Oh,
Just signed them.
We're-
Oh man. Cool. Well, there you have it, everybody. Some reunion shows. It never happened. And we are very sad about it. So anyway, if there's any that we have not mentioned that you guys watching really wish to see, put those in the comments below.
Oh,
And,
I just thought of one actually.
one more. There you go.
So I had tickets, and I talked to Karen about this at length. I bought tickets to see Black Flag.
right.
I'm sorry, I'm going to do air quotes. Black Flag at St. Vitus, like a week ago, and it's just Greg Ginn and some whoever. It's not Henry. No, Henry Rollins is my favorite Black Flag.
There are two versions of Black Flag at the moment.
Well, there was all the legal bullshit, like many of these bands.
No version.
You know, there was Flag, all that shit. So basically, at this point, this version was Greg Ginn, the guitarist, and a bunch of other people, and they were going to play My War, the whole album, which is my favorite Black Flag album. And I went to, like, you know, I saw all these other shows. I was out in Chicago for a Metal Fest with Nick, and we did all this other stuff. And thankfully, the app that that venue uses, you have an option to sell the ticket back if you don't want it, which is kind of a nice feature. So I'm just thinking, like, man, you know what? But I just ended up fucking selling it and didn't go. And yeah, I didn't have any enthusiasm for it. I'm like, it would be cool to see Greg, like, among punk rock hardcore. The guy's he's a legend. He's a legend. You know, there's no way around it. But
why didn't you go to the Chance show? They played the Chance.
When was that? Well, this was like, I was at, like, I don't know. I went to so many shows.
Yeah, you must have been beat.
Yeah, I don't know. That day came around, and I'm just like, I didn't feel like getting in my car and driving to the city, so I said, "Fuck it."
Yeah, they played the Chance a few years ago, though.
Now, was
remember
that
why.
Black Flag or Flag?
I think it was Flag.
No, it was Black
Was it?
Flag.
Oh,
Yeah.
Ah.
I actually, when they first reunited, they had Chavo. He was like the second singer after Keith Morris.
Yeah,
And they played Brooklyn, that Polish place there.
that's right.
Warsaw.
The
They
Warsaw.
played the
yeah.
Warsaw.
That's
I went to
This
that,
show was
and,
with the guy singing for them, like, last week. It was somebody I didn't know. He didn't sing.
Yeah, that's Mike Flao. He's that famous skateboarder guy. But so I went to the Black Flag reunion tour with Chavo, and they put out the new album, the last album, What's This or whatever it was called. But
which is not good.
Chavo, they did like 6 shows, and I was at one of them in Brooklyn, and that guy Mike Vallejo, he had a band with Greg Ginn called Good for Now, and they opened the show. And then after like 6 shows, the Chavo guy took off and quit, and that guy Mike jumped in. He's been the singer for Black Flag ever since. And then a few years later, they came to the Chance, and when they came to the Chance, I bring like 11 Black Flag albums, and I got Greg Ginn to sign them all. And I thought they did a good show.
So Ralph, you were always that guy? You can't bring like just one thing?
I respect that. That's good, because now I got a lot of cool shit.
Has got the collection. I mean, you should do a show opening up what you have, Ralph. I know the memorabilia, all the swag you have is out of
It'd be a
control.
series of shows.
I've heard
Curse
rumors
and
about it.
So Chris is the grumpy guy who's got one album, and he's behind Ralph in line. Ralph has got a stack of
right.
CDs like
Well,
that.
it's funny because
What the fuck?
both the Jello Biafra and the Black Flag, the Jello Biafra and the Black Flag, they were at the Chance. So I just leave them in the car. And because I knew the people at the Chance, they let me in and out. And I remember seeing Greg just standing there. No one recognized him. He's like some old guy standing in the back of the bar. Not one person even talking to him. I'm like, yo, you're going to be hanging out after the show. I got a bunch of vinyl I want to get signed. I already met him in Brooklyn, and he was really cool. And he's like, hey, grab the albums now if you can, because I think we're taking off, because they were going to Europe like right after that show.
Oh,
and
wow.
all right. And I talked to the people that running the door at the Chance. They're like, yeah, go ahead, man. And I ran in, came in, they signed them all, took pictures with us right before they went on, and I got them all signed.
Very cool. Very cool.
There you go. Love those
Jello
songs.
was after the show. They had like they shut the show down and like they kicked them out, even the bands, and it was Negative Approach and Jello Biafra and the Guantanamo School of Medicine. And they didn't give them any beer or nothing. And I had like a case of beer in the car, and I was hanging out, and they were like, "Oh, we're dying for beer." Not the Jello Biafra, but the Negative Approach guys. So I'm like, yo, I got beer. I came back from the car with my albums and some beer. They gave me free DVDs and CDs and shit, and let them drink as many of the beers as they wanted. It was great to be out for like an hour, just like us, me, my wife, and Jello Biafra's band and Negative Approach. It was fucking awesome.
Sounds like fun, actually.
So the moral of the story is, everyone, when you're going to see a cool band at
Go
a
to
club,
shows or
pack
record.
lots of beer and all your albums, because you never know who you're going to meet.
Never
right?
know.
You know what? I got one more.
Get out of here.
No, it's good because first off, it involves when I met Nick. Right? There's a good story there, and it's the opposite. It's the ideal reunion. So it's the band Sodom from Germany. They played the Chance and they never like, okay, so the big three from Germany were Destruction, Sodom, and Creator. Destruction tour all the fucking time. Creator tour all the time. You have a lot of opportunities to see those bands in the US. Sodom, you can get fucked. You never get to see them. They played the Chance in like 2005. And that's where I met Nick, because Nick was drunk as shit. Sorry, Nick. And he was outside in a trash can, upside down, singing Man of War songs. And I'm like, I like this guy. I like this guy a lot. That's how me and Nick became.
I was at that show.
That did.
It was
happen.
great.
I was at that show.
Yeah, I know Nick was definitely at that show. I don't know if Nick remembers it, but anyways, so Sodom, the main guy is Tom Angel Ripper. You know, that's what his mother named Tom
Wasn't
Angel
that the
Ripper.
tour with Fintroll?
That was a show at Fintroll, yeah.
I saw that in the city. Yeah. Okay.
So
I went to both.
They did two things last year. We went to Norway for a festival. We got to see Sodom, and they reunited with the guitarist Frank Blackfire, who played on some of the coolest '80s shit, like Agent Orange. They put out this album, Genesis XIX, and it was it was such a good show. But years ago, Tom did something I've never seen many bands do, and I thought it was really cool. Their first EP from 1984 was called In the Sign of Evil, and it was a totally different lineup because they're almost like a thrash metal Motorhead. Like, he's bassist, vocalist, and they've had different guitarists and drummers over the years. So he got back the original guys together from that In the Sign of Evil, because he said, we originally intended to record a full album and we never did. We didn't have the money. We were brand new. We were all young. And he got those guys back together. And I think it took a lot of effort, but he did it. And they finally recorded all the songs they meant to do. And they re-recorded the songs and they made a full album out of it. It was called The Final Sign of Evil. It's not the greatest thing in the world. It's kind of a historical thing, or if you're a Sodom super fan, it's kind of cool. But just the fact that he would do that, they didn't really play shows because I think just getting these guys in the studio was they hadn't been in the music scene for a while. But just the fact that he did that to me was like really cool. It was just like something for the fans, almost like really like the ultimate, check this out, and they kept recording studio albums with the regular Sodom lineup as it was at the time. Like, this was a one-off just with the original guys. But I was like, just the fact that he did that was so fucking cool. And then unfortunately the drummer, Chris Witchhunter, that's what his mom named him too. He passed away a little after that. So it was never going to be like a long-term thing. And I think they said like these guys hadn't played in a long time. So there was a lot of struggle, a lot of shaking the rust off. But I wish more bands would do that, but I get why they don't, because it's probably no fucking money in it. It's just like strictly a labor of love. But yeah, I thought it was cool. Just wanted to throw that in there.
When Sodom came to the Chance, that show, they only played I think 5 shows when they came to America that time.
Yeah, it was very few.
And throughout their whole career, they've only come a couple times. So we were so lucky to get them at a Chance show.
Oh yeah.
And I remember reading an article with them, like right when they got home, and they were like, "How was the American shows?" He's like, "What's weird?" He's like, "After the show, no one hangs out." He's like, "Everybody just gets in their car and goes home." you know, because they're in the city or whatever. Everybody's just jumping on the subway, and I was thinking, fuck, there's probably nobody back outside waiting for him that night. I could have got all my Sodom albums signed and hung out.
Missed your
That would've
chance
been
to have
the-
40 records signed there. Right?
Yeah, I could've
They got a
all
lot
of
of good
them, I got
albums.
all the bootlegs. I could have gave him some beers.
That writer's cramp.
You guys
Yeah.
gonna have carpal tunnel?
They were supposed to play. I don't remember. This was kind of famous. They were supposed to play Maryland Death Fest like 3 or 4 times, and every time they canceled. And then eventually, the promoters of Maryland Death Fest just came out and said, "We're, you know, because every year people are like, who do you want to see?" And they're like, "Sodom. We want to see Sodom." And at some point, the promoters are like, "We're not going to even fucking bother." They keep flaking out. Fuck them. You know, you'll never see them at our fest because we're just sick of trying to deal with them. And they've never played the fest. The promoters were true to their word. They were not going to bother with them anymore. So I don't know the story behind it. I don't know who was. You know, that's not my business. But yeah, there was definitely at least 3 Maryland Death Fests.
Hates touring. He hates touring. Like even in Europe, they do handful of shows in little spurts and stuff, but they don't do like massive tours.
No, it's only
Europe.
like it's never more than like yeah, you're right. They never do these like mega like
play all the
48
festivals.
tours.
They're always on all the festivals over there, but that's about it. You know, they don't really tour.
Oh yeah, you could fly in, play one show, and fly home. You know, and you get the good fest money too. You know, so
Yeah.
it is what it is. But yeah, you're right. That chance show, we were lucky to have that. And me and Nick, I was very happy to see him last year with Frank back on guitar because, you know, I haven't seen him at that point in years. They go on stage and right away it's just like, yep, this is the greatest fucking thing ever. I'm happy I'm here.
Right
that
up
album
front,
that
too.
you held up, that was my favorite album of the year when that came out. That one, that last Sodom album.
Oh, this one? Yeah, this is really,
Yeah,
really
that
good.
was fucking
Really
awesome.
good.
Yeah, it's very heavy.
That sounds more like the old school shit than any of those bands that are still putting out shit today.
I agree. Yeah, they're one of the of all the old thrash bands, them and Voivod are the 2 that I stick with the most.
They sound more like old Sodom than Voivod, and I love the new Voivod, but it's like they don't really sound anything like what they.
Oh no,
they
you're
used
right.
to.
Yeah, it definitely has that old feel because I think Tom just seems like a genuine loves what he does. You know.
That's an episode right there. Bands that sound more like they did, or still sound like they did back in the day, compared to.
There are some
now.
of them, yeah. There are some of it,
Definitely.
like the bands who are having like a really strong creative streak late in their career, right?
Yeah.
We'll talk off camera. That might be something we can do.
Late bloomers.
Yeah. And for those watching, if you do attend like some, you know, maybe obscure metal shows around the world, if you do happen to see an upside down drunk Nick Franco in a garbage bin, please help us out and get him out of that garbage bin and buy the man a drink, please. All right.
Don't throw him out. Don't throw him
Don't
out.
throw him out.
Throw him out. Yes, just get him out of that garbage can. send
Throw him
up
out.
the way,
Throw him out.
give him a drink.
Let
and-
No,
him
don't throw him out. He's got a heart of gold. Keep him in.
I never
He'll
get
wake
thrown
up at the
out.
bottom of a dumpster
Yeah,
one
'cause-
day. Oh my
knock on wood.
god!
You might get zooted, but you're very friendly.
Yeah.
You're very friendly.
Yep.
All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together.
All the
damn
damn
time.
time.
For Karen, for Craig, for Nick, for Chris, for Ryan, for Ralph, and for Rob. I am Pete. Have a good one, everybody. See you 2 weeks back here on the Hudson Valley
Peace
Squares.
out.
Week, everybody. Bye-bye.
Peace out.